Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema Podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle and thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema.com as well as the Sonic Cinema Podcast YouTube channel. You can also click subscribe and rate and review at places like Apple, Google, Spotify podcasts, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. You can also check us out at patreon.com/Sonic Cinema. There, this month in particular, you'll probably get some Oscar stuff as well as short film discussions from the Sundance Film Festival. That is patreon.com/Sonic Cinema. For the first episode of the 2022 podcast season, we're going to take a bit of a left turn. This was actually a discussion I recorded as part of another friend of mine's podcast, Marv Dickey. He had this idea of looking at obscure 1990s movies, and we discussed Steven Soderbergh's Kafka for that discussion. The podcast never really took off, and so he gave me permission to publish it as part of the Sonic Cinema podcast, and I hope you enjoy. It's a really fun discussion on a movie that hopefully we're finally going to get a new version of from Soderbergh. I've heard it's completed, supposedly played at Toronto last year, so hopefully it'll be a matter of time before it gets released. So I hope you check out this episode of Kafka, and I hope you enjoy.
Today, I have a very good friend of mine. Although we've never met in person, we're online friends. He's an amazing film guy who knows his stuff, and he's been one of my favorite people on Facebook for the last 10, 12 years. I don't know. It's been quite a while.
It's been about 10 years.
Yeah, his name is Brian Scuttle, and he is would you say owner of a website?
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically, it's a personal blog, but, owner is a good way of putting it.
You're a custodian.
Yeah.
But welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you very much. That website is Sonic Cinema, www.sonic-cinema.com. I also host a podcast, the Sonic Cinema Podcast, with Marv has been on many, many times. And you can find that at the Sonic Cinema Podcast YouTube channel, as well as Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. And I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/Sonic Cinema. And it's good to be here talking to you about the movie that we're about to talk about.
Well, let's get right to it then. Today's film is, let's keep with this little video store gimmick. You rented Kafka from my store, and you're bringing it back. Let's discuss it. Kafka is a film from 1991, and it was written by Lim Dobbs, who also wrote 1998's Dark City, 1999's The Limey, and amongst others, also 2018's Gotti, starring John Travolta.
Yeah, I did not realize that until I saw it written down on the notes that you sent me. I didn't realize he had written that Gotti film.
I saw it on IMDb while I was doing research for him, and I was like, "Oh man, I gotta throw that one on."
Well,
there.
Yeah,
I was like,
"You really have to."
I saw the Gotti, and I was like, "Not the one with Travolta." And I was like, "Oh man, it should be called Paycheck, right?" It was also directed by Steven Soderbergh. This was his second feature film, his follow-up to 1989's Sex, Lies, and Videotape. He had done a few shorts before that, but nothing big. You know Soderbergh. You know, the basic audience would probably know him from Aaron Brockovich, Traffic, the Ocean's trilogy, and I know your favorite, and as well as mine, Magic Mike.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yes, he directed all those films.
I mean, I will say, like, Magic Mike is actually not a bad movie. It's actually an entertaining movie. I don't know that I will ever watch it again, but it's an entertaining movie.
Well, that ends the podcast. Another movie we don't agree on. That was garbage. It was entertaining, but it wasn't great. It was, oh my God. I had to sit through it like 3 times with my ex-girlfriend.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I lived. It also stars Alec Guinness, as we know better as
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi from the original trilogy. He plays the chief cleric. Ian Holm, rest in peace. We just lost him. Ian Holm is okay. I have trouble pronouncing this. It's Dr. Murnau.
Yes.
Murnau.
Yes.
Murnau.
Murnau.
Is it Murnau? Okay. I'm part German and I can't even read that. Not that my ethnicity should have any kind of semblance on my pronunciations. Theresa Russell as Gabriella. She's quoted or credited on IMDb as Gabriella, but she was Rossman, I believe, right? They refer to her as Rossman.
Okay.
And the main star, who did a fantastic job, Jeremy Irons as Kafka.
Yes.
He's credited as Franz Kafka or Kafka. Am I saying that right?
Is the Kafka.
Is that Michigan accent coming through?
Although I think the funny thing is, I think in the movie you hear both pronunciations, depending on the character pronouncing it. So yeah, I think Kafka and then
Kafka.
Kafka. I mean, I think you hear both of them in there.
I grew up too close to Canada, eh? It's Kafka to me. Yeah. So let's get into this. Could you give us the film description, please?
Yeah. So the film is set in Prague in 1990, and it tells the tale of an insurance clerk, Kafka, played by Jeremy Irons, who gets involved with an underground group after one of his co-workers is murdered. The underground group, responsible for bombings all over town, attempts to thwart a secret organization that controls the major events in society. He eventually penetrates the secret organization in order to confront them. Spoiler alert for those of you who have not seen Kafka, which I would imagine is most of the audience.
They've had 29 years to not see this movie, so spoilers will happen in this podcast.
Yeah.
So go watch it. Go find it if you're lucky enough to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Please continue. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So that's basically the. So just to get a little bit more into the description, the friend that dies or goes missing, fittingly, or at first we think he's just missing until his by later comes up, is Edward Raban, and like the description said, he's a friend of Kafka's from his work, and we also see Kafka at his work, and he actually is, because of Raban's disappearance, he finds himself in line for a promotion that Raban was going to get, and the office manager, in another really great casting coup by Soderbergh, is played by the great Joel Grey, who is best known for Cabaret and a bunch of other things. I also know him. He was a villain in season 5 of Buffy. And
I didn't get that far.
Yeah, he was in a few episodes of Buffy, and
he also did he win the Academy Award for Cabaret?
I can't remember if he did or not. I can't remember if he won the Oscar for Cabaret. He was definitely no, because I don't know. I don't think he did, but he could have. But anyway, so in one of the aspects of the movie is basically this idea. We've already talked about the underground organization that Raban was a part of, And one of the things that is interesting about this movie, and we'll get into this more in the course of the discussion, because it has to do with the way the film is made and designed to look, is there's basically this idea of being called to the castle by people that we don't exactly see or know. It's basically a nameless bureaucracy. And so that's one of the things that leads Kafka down this rabbit hole of conspiracy, of shadowy government bureaucracy throughout the film. And it's a really compelling film to watch.
Yes, this is Oscar winner Joel Grey in the film Cabaret, but oh wait, no, that's not it either. Maybe it wasn't. It was 73. Was Cabaret 73?
It was 72. It was the same year The Godfather.
Yes, here it is.
Won.
Best supporting actor for Cabaret, 1972.
All right.
Yeah, but at the 73 Oscars, I guess he won. Yeah. Problem solved, everybody. My brain does not hurt anymore. Because I know there's 3 Oscar winners and an Oscar nominee in this film. Yeah. Joel Grey won 1. Jeremy Irons won. I don't remember what for. You probably know.
Reversal of Fortune.
Oh, okay. Alec Guinness had his Academy Award.
For
and
River Kwai.
Yeah, and I believe Ian Holm was nominated.
Yes, for Chariots of Fire, if I remember correctly.
All right, the film starts out with an amazing open. I was sold at the end of this, before they even threw up the credits. I was sold because it's who we find out is Edward. It's Edward, where he meets his end. He's being chased through a city by, it appears to be, just this quiet, stalking man, correct?
Yeah.
In a kind of a bolo hat, suit, very, very dressed to the nines kind of guy. And he gets backed into a corner as he's being chased through, and in this corner appears, his killer, a madman. Oh, the madman was giggling and laughing as he was strangling Edward. I was just like, what is going on here? I didn't know this was going to be a horror film. This is awesome. It has little bits of horror in it, but it has bits of comedy too.
Yes.
But that open, it sold me. I was like, all right, time to move closer to the TV. I was ready. What'd you think?
No, I love that opening, and it is one of the things that really hooked me on. I think this is probably the 4th or 5th time I've seen Kafka over the years. When I was rewatching it before this show, and it's one of those things where I almost always forget that ending, that opening of the movie, and then once it hits, you're just so sucked in. One of the things that's so great about Kafka, I personally have not read any of Kafka's writing, but
neither have I.
Know that this is a movie that sort of ties autobiographical details of Kafka's actual life along with elements of his writing. It's one of the things that's really interesting about Lundob's screenplay here. And you can really tell, and there's a lot of paranoia, there's a lot of anxiety that comes out in the movie, and there's just a lot of the way the energy of this film, it starts out with that opening. It's very unnerving. And one of the main catalysts of that is not only the fact that Soderbergh and his cinematographer Walt Lloyd shot in black and white, but the Cliff Martinez score, which is probably one of my favorite scores of his for Soderbergh, if not my favorite score of his for Soderbergh.
Oh, does he work with him a lot?
Oh yeah, him, and then David Holmes started to work with him a lot with Out of Sight and other movies. But yeah, Cliff Martinez has been one of Soderbergh's primary composers over the years.
I know we both love scores.
Yeah.
You more so than myself, but I like kind of left that for you. I was all like, if I'm going to talk about the score, no, I'll let Brian talk about the score. I know he would talk about the score. This was my first viewing of this film. I had heard about it through the years, and then I just never got to it. It was kind of a joke in the '90s with, I think Dennis Miller would bring it up from time to time, like in his rants, his editorials. He would throw like Kafka in there. I don't know if he was talking about maybe the movie, maybe not, maybe the writings, but this film was, according to some trivia I found, this is a film that's hard to find information on.
Yeah.
It's if you do a YouTube search for review, because I thought I'd give it a watch a couple to just to see if I made sense of everything, and there isn't any. There's a weird edit where somebody put their own music to a weird, strange edit of a progression of the film that has like the German, like the German dubbing. It's very odd. It was posted like 7 years ago. It had like 43 views. It's odd. But yeah, I couldn't find any unless there was some glitch in my search at the time. I couldn't find a single movie review for Kafka on YouTube. So this is where you step in, sir.
So this is it, and part of the reason that I would imagine that Dennis Miller might bring up Kafka is because it's kind of an example of the sophomore slump when it comes to filmmakers, because Sexualized and Videotape basically put Soderbergh and indie cinema at that time on the map in a way that no other film had really done. And so he basically, I mean, it was nominated, won the Palme d'Or, Cannes. It was nominated for, I think, Oscar. I think he did get nominated for an Oscar for it. I can't remember, but it was a huge deal, and so Kafka was his follow up to that, and needless to say, it sank like a stone. I mean, it's one of those films where, and part of the reason you probably were unable to find a review of it is because it's not readily available, and it hasn't been for years. I have it on VHS, which was released by Paramount in the '90s, and even though it's a Miramax film, and so it hasn't, and there are rights issues as to the reason that hasn't been available, and it's really, I know in my review, when I did review it in 2009 for Sonic Cinema, one of the things I had said at the end was I was really hoping that at some point this and another Soderbergh, his next film, which I absolutely adore, King of the Hill, would get released sometime on DVD and now on Blu-ray. And King of the Hill has gotten released on Blu-ray. It's officially part of the Criterion Collection. And I'm kind of
I love Boomhauer.
not that King of the Hill. Not that King of the Hill. That would be hilarious, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if Soderbergh did like a live action version of that King of the Hill. That would be hilarious. But no
fantasy booking.
So the film, his third film, it's based on a novel. It's set in the Depression. It's really a wonderful coming of age story, and that is part of the Criterion Collection now. And,
excellent.
But Kafka is not, and it was funny because when we were talking about recently, before either of us had seen it for this discussion, like I looked on Wikipedia and I didn't realize that the rights eventually went back to Soderbergh and a producing partner of his, and they were at one point, this was like 13, 14 or so. At one point,
2013.
They were at work on a new edit for the film. And we obviously have not seen that edit. Maybe they're still working on it. Maybe they're just waiting on completion funds. But or maybe they're trying to do things to finish it up, but I really
Yeah, it
hope
says
we get to see that cut at some point, preferably through somebody like Criterion.
Yeah, it says in 2013 interview with Vulture, which used to be the New York magazine. That's just their online magazine now, Vulture. Soderbergh stated that the rights to the film had reverted to him and executive producer Paul Rossum. Is that how you say his name, Rossum?
Yeah, I think so.
Making sure that's correct. And that work had begun on a completely different version of the movie. Soderbergh reported that he and Lim Dobbs did some rewriting. Inserts were shot during the making of Side Effects, and he plans to dub the film in German and release both the original and new versions. And that was in 2013.
Yeah.
And and in 2020, I had to buy a bootleg from South Korea DVD off of eBay.
Yeah.
It did not come without its troubles.
Yeah, needless to say, I mean, there's obviously a reason a lot of people are not as familiar with this film as I wish they were, because this is like Dark City, which we talked about a lot on my podcast.
Yes, go to the Sonic Cinema podcast on YouTube. Is that Sonic Cinema or is it Sonic Dash Cinema?
So on YouTube, it's the Sonic Cinema podcast.
Okay, go to that. Find that episode of Dark City and listen to it. It's good.
Yeah,
I'm on it. That's why.
You can go to sonic-cinema.com. Just look up my written review of Dark City, and at the bottom you can see the podcast is actually embedded in the bottom of the review. So
excellent. Yeah, go read that.
Two reviews at one stone. But
oh yeah,
I was, and one of the things we talked about when it comes to Dark City, I think we talked about it on that podcast, was I was obsessed with that movie before it came out. It was one of those movies that I really was excited about because I love The Crow, which Alex Perez had done before that, and
right.
I was really excited about it. And so I'd heard something originally about the movie coming out, and then when I started to look into it more, it was co-written by Lem Dobbs, and so it was around 97, 98. I can't remember if it was before or after Dark City that I was able to see Kafka. This was when A, video stores were readily accessible, and B, when they actually had VHS cassettes. And so I ran that, and I really loved it. And it was one of those movies that I really enjoyed. And one of the things that I like about it now, one of the things I appreciate about it now, is that now that I've grown in my appreciation of cinema, I'm more familiar with classic cinema. It's easier to see the references that Dobbs and Soderbergh worked into this film. And if you look at like some of the camera angles that Walt Lloyd employs in this, there's a lot of old school film noir in this, in the way that they approach the making of this film and the way that this film is shot. And if you're familiar with The Third Man, the Orson Welles, the Carol Reed thriller starring Joseph Cotten and Orson Welles, I think Cliff Martinez's score is in a lot of, there's some musical references to The Third Man, as well as I think the way the movie is shot, I think plays into being referenced to that. And then you have the bureaucratic notions in Lem Dobbs' script when it comes to Kafka's life, and that's a bit of Brazil. And you get a little bit of that dark humor of Terry Gilliam's film in the bureaucracy aspect of this, with Joel Grey's character, and then with the assistants that Kafka is assigned when he does get the promotion.
Yeah, that was one of the things I really enjoyed about the film, was the honestly, as soon as like the film started, and then I started seeing the 45-degree angles, I was all like, "Oh man, this has Third Man feeling to it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh hell yeah, I'm gonna mention that," and I just did. So there's that. But you beat me to it. Yeah, those angles, like it really, and it's very a lot of below angles, like when we see the meal bombing,
Yeah.
the meal bombing scene when everybody's eating, they've got that 45-degree angle, but it's coming up from their like from the table, like from the chest. The angle of the camera is it's very unsettling watching these old rich men eat. They're coughing on themselves,
Yeah.
and they're gagging on their drinks. It's just like, this is kind of unsettling, and I'm sure that's what they were going for.
Mhm.
And then that man came in with the silver platter, and it's like, oh, don't trust him. Enjoy your meal. It's like, oh no, I'm out of here. No, thank you, sir. But they didn't have time to get out of there. They got a little exploded.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things that really the thing that really is fun for me about this movie, and we'll talk about some of it a bit later when we get near the end of our discussion, is that the thing that's interesting about Kafka's writing and his ideas is he deals in a lot of unusual type of paranoia, like the idea it's very Hitchcockian too. This idea of the man wrongly accused, and you see that in uh, elements of stories like The Trial, and there's elements of this too, where it's like Kafka is, he hasn't necessarily been accused of anything, but you get the feeling that people look at him suspiciously throughout this, and then just the and the fact that he gets sucked into this other world, he could just as easily go on as a corporate drone, but at the same time he gets sucked into this world of a larger uh, bureaucracy that is essentially controlling everything. It's one of the things that's so interesting about this movie. And there are actually a couple of other actors that I wanted to mention. There's Jerome Crabbe, who a lot of people who was also in King of the Hill, the Soderbergh film, but he was also one of the main supporting characters in The Fugitive. And then Armin Mueller-Stahl plays a police officer in this. He's best known as the father in Shine. And
The father what?
The father in the movie Shine.
Oh, okay.
So
sorry, I didn't hear it.
Yeah. So those two are also key characters in this, and Crabbe's character is essentially he's basically he's just like, I don't know, he's a street sweeper or something like that. But he's somebody who's more knowledgeable. He's somebody who really helps navigate Kafka in this journey.
Yeah, I usually just pick the top 3 or 5 when I introduce the film.
Oh yeah.
But there's so many underplayed performances in this with the listing of even their little bits. Just the little bits are pretty fantastic in this movie.
Yeah.
It had me drawn in. It made me put my phone down until I had to ask you things and make sure I wasn't like my bootleg wasn't being goofy.
Yeah, exactly.
I had audio issues. The scene in the very beginning of the film when we meet everybody in the insurance firm. Now I can't even think of his name. The little guy with the notebook.
Oh, that's Joel Grey's character.
Yes, I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I can't remember the character's name either.
Okay, I'm gonna edit that part out too.
Okay.
In the beginning of the film, when we meet the people of the insurance film, there's a scene where Joel Grey is talking to Gabriella, and they're walking and talking. The audio was just down. It was just really, really low. It happened in a couple other scenes throughout the film, like when they're on the bridge, when Gabriella and Kafka are on the bridge, and she wants to meet up and all that. It was really low at that point too. And I don't know if it was part of the film was just quiet, but I suspect I just have a really crappy bootleg. Come on, Soderbergh, release the real thing. So I had to deal with audio issues, and then I texted Brian because I had to. There was an odd Wizard of Oz moment where about an hour and 10 minutes in, we get a scene where Kafka enters the castle, and the castle looks an awful lot like an insane asylum, and it turns to color. Just like in Wizard of Oz, where she gets to Oz, everything turns to color, and I was all like, "Oh no, was this movie all in color?" And the bootleg had it in black and white, and then it went back to black and white after the scenes in the castle. It's like, oh, no, okay, that was just the style that he was going for.
Yes, and I love that he does do that because of the fact that it really does. I mean, it does give you a Wizard of Oz feel, but it also makes you feel like he's finally seeing things. He, instead of the black and white world that he was living in, he's now open to everything that he's supposed to be seeing in this world. And the castle was essentially, it is essentially at this place where this larger conspiracy comes to the forefront, and it's so the fact that is a color sequence, and also it's important because of the fact that you start to see it, you finally start to, it's that way that you see black and white versus color. And one of the things that's really interesting about it, the way he's, before the color comes into play, when he's at that junction with the different doors, like you get the feeling that he's still seeing things in black and white and he's trying to figure out a way to make it work to where he can remember which way he's supposed to go, but at the same time it's hard for us to tell that because everything looks the same. And so he does the drops of ink from his pen, and that's it. It's really a nice touch from on Soderbergh and Lloyd's part that one part is colorized, and I wonder if part of that might have been the studio might have wanted that because of the fact that they weren't sure how a fully black and white movie would play. We need some color, but the fact is, if you take it within the narrative of the film, it actually makes a lot of sense that that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, he sees when he makes it to the castle, he's seeing, like you said, he's seeing everything clear, everything's coming to light. The details he's been seeking, the answers he's been seeking, where pretty much everybody has been kind of curious of what the castle is in this village. It comes clear, and when he enters the building after it's fantastic because it's a video game moment where he goes to a cemetery with the street sweeper, and he climbs in and he says, if I don't return, or was that the right? If he doesn't return, or if he dies, if he doesn't come back, whatever, burn my manuscripts. Yeah. And he apparently said that to Kafka in real life, said that to one of his partners. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't do it, and he just went and had them published. That's why, like, the castle that's partly this movie's partly based on isn't finished. Mm-hmm. It's an unfinished piece, apparently. Okay. I haven't read any of his stuff, just like yourself, but he goes to a cemetery, climbs down a hole by a grave. They have to move a headstone out of the way, and he goes through a tunnel and he enters the castle, and everything's. But what, like you said, he used this fountain pen where he squirted a little bit of ink here and there, so he knows where he's going. Yeah. I was like, what is he doing? And then I got it. Boom! I was like, Hansel and Gretel moment. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, that's genius, man. They could have just had him slowly creeping through a hall, but they gave him an action, and I thought that little bit of action was just. It just tied it together just right.
Oh yeah, and it really fits into the it really fits into the paranoid the mystery aspect of this movie, and that's one of the things that I really like. And in addition to the third man, which I mean, this very much is in the film noir tradition. It also
Right.
goes back to the German expressionist films of the silent era too. I mean, you can't help but think of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari or something like Nosferatu, which is probably where Dr. Murnau, as in F.W. Murnau, probably got his name from in
Right.
Don's script.
Speaking of that, I also had that same moment where I felt it was a bit of a Caligari moment where when we see the village, it feels the insurance firm on the inside feels like 1930s, 1940s, maybe even early 1950s, but mainly pre-World War II
Yeah.
era. It has that vibe. And then when you go outside, it feels like a 19th century European village, which it was shot in Czechoslovakia and the UK. So I'm guessing there was no real sets there. I'm sure there was sets.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely that castle was definitely a matte painting.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, unless I'm wrong, because if that's real castle, I'm like they did a good job. They did a good job filming that to make it look like it was real.
Right. Well, I mean, it does make you wonder just how much had changed in Prague over the century to, because I would imagine a lot of that is probably still in a lot of that was probably still around even in the late 80s, early 90s. And that's one of the things that's so striking about this film. One of the things that I love is that the production design and the cinematography, it's just such a wonderful visual experience to watch this movie, very much in the same way Dark City is, and yet you have this very sort of contemporary mystery that's going on within it.
Yeah, the man, where to begin? There's so many little elements that all come together great. His writings is what brings him to meeting his coworkers are part of a terrorist group that are responsible for bombings throughout the city, the village, whatever we can call it. I would say it's a city, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
The Gabriella, who he works with, wants him to come work on the propaganda that they're distributing, because his writing is fantastic and theirs is not. Their writing apparently is very lacking, and they want him to come on board to just do the writing, and he refuses to because he writes for himself. I think that was a interesting way to kind of squeeze him into knowing who these people are. Just that little bit, like, you're a good writer, we need you. And now he's in the middle of all this secret society terrorism, bomb threats, and not really threats, just bombings through these people who are fighting back. In a way, they're fighting. It's kind of like the people that really want to know what the Matrix are. The Matrix is.
Oh yeah.
And why is it this way? Why are they running things? Why is society controlled by these people in particular, and for what reasons? And that's why they want to know what's going on at the castle, because everything's to be focused around the big castle in town.
Yeah. Yeah, and the fact that it ends up being, and the fact that the castle kind of, it's basically an sort of a mental institution in a way, but it's also sort of an indoctrination. It's a place where they will lobotomize you to try to get you to conform, or if you can't conform, they'll essentially kill you there. And
right.
It's one of those things where, yeah, I mean, it is, the Matrix is all over this as well. I mean, basically any movie where it's like it's about unveiling the truth of the world that these characters exist in. I mean, that's basically, this is one of those things that it obviously is something that interests Dobbs because of the fact that he revisited some of these same ideas in Dark City, and then
Right.
the Dark City is very much in the same vein as the Matrix, and then you just but it's also in this realm of fiction, in this realm of science fiction that, I mean, it does go back to Kafka. So
I find that that connection is pretty cool, because usually, like you and I have discussed at length about the Dark City and Matrix connections, and I kind of want to throw Kafka into this discussion, because Kafka feels like the primitive version of the Matrix,
yeah.
and Dark City is kind of like the futuristic version of Kafka.
Mhm.
And then that also leads into the further into the future version of the Matrix. And I feel like they all kind of connect. Like you said, they connect in the same way that, they want to know who's running things and why, and
Yeah.
what's going on in the world.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because of the fact that, like, Kafka is so obscure, but the fact is, it's like, I can see fans of The Matrix, fans of Dark City really loving it because of the fact that it taps into a lot of the same ideas that those movies do in terms of philosophy, in terms of the type of stories that's telling, and then you just have the visual aspect of it that's just wonderful as well.
Let's take a moment and step away from the film, and let's discuss its reception. The film was released in 1991, and it had a budget of $11 million. Do you know how much it made, Brian? Just talking box office, not home video.
So I'm going to guess it was less than 2.
Yes, it was actually 1/10. It was $11 million budget, and it made 1.1 million at the box office.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was probably a good reason why this started to fall into its grave of being buried. On right now on Rotten Tomatoes, after 23 reviews, the critic score is 52%.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fresh.
No.
But the audiences love it, because after nearly 5,000 reviews, it has a 77% rating.
Okay.
So this is one of those movies that is divided between the professionals and the movie watchers.
Well, and the funny thing is, it's like I wonder how many of those professionals, if they had a chance to rewatch it now, how much of them would probably change their minds about it. I have a feeling
do you think
have a better reception now than it did in 1991, just because of the fact that I think a lot of people would probably look at it as, oh, well, what is Soderbergh doing here? Why is he doing this weird thing? And it's like, we basically weren't at that point where audiences were conditioned for something to sort of like test their nature of reality when it comes to films. And in the same way that Kafka does, in the same way The Matrix does, in the same way Dark City does. And so I feel like if this movie ever does see the light of day again via Criterion or something like that, you're going to start to either get people revisiting it for the first time in almost 30 years, or you're going to start to see people see it for the first time after having finally have it available and realize, hey, this is a damn good movie.
Yeah, so you think out of those 23 critic reviews, you think the majority of them are retrospective reviews?
That's a good question. I mean, I would kind of have to. I would imagine there are. Let me look. Let me try to bring up IMDb here.
Okay.
And look at, but I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that the ones that are on. If it's 52% rotten, then I would say that probably a good percentage of those are in fact original reviews for it from
right. Looking back on their reviews, or maybe even finding an article that they wrote.
Yeah, because I know Roger Ebert. I don't think Roger Ebert was a fan of it in 1991.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like not many people were, because what, 52% of 23 is what, 12? So 12 out of the 23
Yeah, it's
liked it. So it's, but like I said, the audience has a 77%, 77% of 5,000, nearly 5,000 enjoyed the film. So I absolutely enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder how 5,000 people actually
got a hold of it
recently, since it's so unavailable. But
yes, I bet you there's a lot of bootlegs from South Korea that's making some dough.
Oh, no doubt. No
Unless
doubt.
you have the VHS collectors, a lot of VHS collectors are out there now. There's a few documentaries that on VHS collecting that I really enjoy. I don't think I have it in me to collect something like that. That takes up a lot of space. I remember having 600 VHS tapes and needing like 4 bookshelves to have it. So I'm not going to get into that game.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depended. Well, it kind of depended on how you would stack them, as far as how much space you needed to put them all
to
on
display.
The shelf. So.
Yeah, okay, real quick, sidetracking. I can edit this if I want to, or I'll leave it in. You have VHS and DVDs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Blu-rays, you have all that.
Yep.
Do you have Laserdisc?
I never got into Laserdisc. It was too expensive. But yeah, we never got into Laserdisc.
How often do you catalog or organize your collection?
So I just basically finished doing that for the first time in a while. I finally found I finally found a lot of my VHSs that I had been missing for a long time.
Oh, nice.
So I was finally able to add those and to, make sure to log those, and we've upgraded some of them to DVD, Blu-ray as can. And admittedly, there are some that like we're just not able to because they're not available on DVD or anything.
Right.
And Kafka,
thus this
is one of them. But
thus this little podcast of mine. I'm searching for those movies that are really good or worth a watch that just become missing because they never got a DVD or Blu-ray or not even on streaming. Yeah. Now Amazon Prime is different because they have a lot of these obscure ones to rent. So maybe that's another place where they found Kafka for the audience.
Possibly. But yeah, I mean, especially if there were rights issues where the rights holder was just like not doing anything with it, I would have a hard time believing that would be available on Prime, though.
Oh, good idea. Yeah. Well, by now it might be over the last few years because if Soderbergh has the rights, he might have just let it go. We don't know. I'll have to look on Amazon Prime later and give you an update. But getting back to you, do you catalog them by genre, by director, by
So when I was single, I did used to do it by genre and sometimes by filmmaker and stuff like that. I had more of a specific one. Now that I'm married, my wife wants to do it alphabetically, so we do alphabetically. I will say though, we have separate. We do separate like Marvel Cinematic Universe, DC, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all of that. So
if you have like Rogue One, it's going in the Star Wars collection. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, see that when I first started collecting my VHS back in the 90s, when I got to like 70, 80, instead of just leaving them in a pile, I got my first bookshelf. And I was like John Cusack's character from
High Fidelity.
Yes, High Fidelity, where I was constantly doing it by director, because I'd have a few like Spielberg films, and then I'd have like Wes Craven films, and then I started doing by genre, and so here's the comedy, here's the horror, here's the drama, and then I just got to the point where I was just like, I'm tired of doing this, and I just alphabetized them all, and I cannot go without alphabetizing my films anymore. I have to have it alphabetized. and it hurts the head, especially when you have a large collection. I have close to 700. I'm sure yours makes mine look embarrassing. I sit there, and over the last couple of months I've been I finally kind of finished. I ran out of space, so I have a big giant stack of unalphabetized ones that kind of hurt the head.
Yeah.
But all of them are alphabetized, but I had a full shelf, like, oh, this looks beautiful, it's all done, and then it's like, oh no, here's a G. I'm on the M's. I'm up to M. Here's a G.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah, that's that's one of the most frustrating things ever when it comes to, because I just, after like a couple of years of not having it really having it organized, since I've been furloughed from work, that's one of the things I knew I wanted to do during this time, and just make sure, get everything alphabetized as much as possible, get everything organized as much as possible. We got some more bookshelves. So yeah, I mean, it's a little bit messier, and we've actually added stuff since then. So that's gonna have to be reorganized, but it's not gonna be as massive an undertaking as it was.
Excellent. One of the things I wanted to learn in this whole shut down the world scenario was learn a new language.
Mhm.
I never got to it, but I think I'm going to learn how to speak Korean, at least cuss Korean to this guy who sold me this DVD. Okay, getting back to the film, was there any scene that you could not? Was there any? Well, I can't say scene. Was there anything about this film that you did not enjoy?
I'm trying to think if there's anything specific that, I don't know that there's really anything specific that stands out. I mean, I think like the only real sort of weak link, and if we're going in the cast, I think like sort of the only real weak link is Theresa Russell. I mean, you know, granted, there's a we went over the credentials of of this cast as far as Oscar nominees, Oscar winning actors, and stuff like that. And
Right.
so, I mean, it's kind of hard to compete with that. But I mean, she's, you know, Theresa Russell's okay in the role. She's fine. There's it's a very standard female character that
Mhm.
she's got written for her. And so that makes it kind of hard to
You can't really
really,
rock a
for
role
her to
that's
really
just.
for her to really stand out
It was
in
too
the rest of the
formulaic.
cast.
It's too formulaic for her to stand out.
Yeah.
To perform. You can't really perform when they hand you vanilla.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Gotta make it.
I think that's a pretty good way of putting it. So,
She did the best she could.
yeah.
Yes, I enjoyed her performance, but again, that was one of those. Like I said earlier, she's, like you said earlier, she is one of those. Here, go act with all these amazing Shakespearean trained, amazing British actors, and then she's doing her damnedest. She did her great job as best she could, but like her character alone, kind of, for me, I wasn't a fan of her character to the point where I was sad that she
Yeah.
was strapped to a table at the end. I was just like, oh, okay, so that's what happened to her. It's like it was almost like there was missing pieces of her.
Yeah.
I feel like there should have been more of her, but then again, I didn't want the movie to run to like 2-3 hours, and I'm sure they didn't want to either.
Yeah. I'm really gonna be curious to see what the film looks like reshaped, because I wonder if there's anything more to that character that, you know, might get added. Because I mean, that's one of the things that's kind of interesting about director's cuts sometimes, is that you see different things come through with regards to character motivations and characterizations that than you did in the theatrical. So it's, and with Soderbergh, you almost feel like there's gonna be something more to that character.
Mhm.
that might come out in a different cut. And I'm very curious to see what that's going to look like when it comes to like them doing pickups and reshoots in like 2013 when most of these actors look very different.
Yes, it's been because they probably filmed it in 90 for 91 release, because back then it's film. It took a while to develop and edit. So I'm guessing 23 years older. Jeremy Irons is probably not looking the same.
No.
I'm sure everybody's not looking the same.
No.
And we lost a few people, too, along the way.
Yeah, I mean, Alec Guinness passed away in 2000. When did Joel Gray pass? I mean, like you said, we just lost Ian Holm, but I mean, that wouldn't have prevented him from being in more scenes in this movie. And it also makes me sad to think that maybe there were like deleted scenes and stuff like that just got destroyed or something along the way if they had to like reshoot scenes or shoot more scenes. It's really kind of unfortunate if that's the case.
Joel Gray is still alive.
Oh wow, okay.
1932 is April 11th, 1932 is his birthday. He's still alive.
Wow.
I don't know if he's doing anything.
Well, I mean, I would imagine he's probably. I would imagine he hasn't really been in too much since, because he was on Buffy in 2001. So.
2019, the investigation, the search for the truth in 10 acts. He played Jeff Sessions in that. He was on CSI. The original CSI show, the Vegas one, in 2014. So,
all right.
He's slowly not picking up jobs. Oh no, 2009 he was steady working all the way until 2014, and he had another job in 2019. Good for him.
Okay, yeah.
What a trooper. It's kind of like Richard Harris. You know, everybody's like, Richard Harris is still alive. Yeah, and he's still acting. He's in the new Harry Potter. You know, that kind of thing.
And then he passed away.
Yeah. Whoops. I've killed many celebrity asking, are they still alive? And the next day they're dead. It happened to Telly Savalas, because TNT, the channel, was still celebrating his birthday one year.
Yeah.
And he died the day after his birthday. And I was like, he's still alive? I did that to Don Pardo. I'm like, oh my God, Don Pardo's still alive? And then, nope, 24 hours later, he passed away. So when I look up to see an old celebrity is still alive or dead, I'm worried.
Yeah.
I've got a curse. I got a curse on me. So what was your favorite part of the film?
I think my favorite part of the film actually is, if we're going like individual scenes, individual moments.
Anything.
I would probably say the stuff with the twins is really enjoyable. My absolute favorite part of this movie, though, is Cliff Martinez's score. And it kills me that this is not available to. I think you can find it on YouTube. You can find tracks of it from cues on YouTube, but yeah, it kills me that this isn't available commercial.
One of my favorite parts is, well, the two, like you said, the twins.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever seen Bob's Burgers?
No.
Okay, there's a pair of twins that are like kind of dimwits, Andy and Ollie, and these guys feel like the grown-up version of Andy and Ollie. And I was like, and I shouted that to my wife. I was just like, hey, it's like Andy and Ollie. That's where the comedy came in for me, was with the twins. Like they're there just to, you know, spoilers obviously. They're there to basically watch Kafka. Their job is to be there to be his assistant, but to watch him.
Yeah.
And so they do these weird things, like where it was kind of cool, where they kept hitting the space bar, or no, they kept turning the wheel till the paper came through and it rolled over into the other one's typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
That was fantastic. But the race to the ding, where they held up their fingers and then they went down and was pressing the space bar fast.
Mm-hmm.
I just want about another hour of them just trying to burn time. And then I believe it was one of the twins that were like they heard the bell to go, like the bell rang for into work day, and he threw up all these, like he had all these files out on his desk. He grabs them all in one haunch, he throws them up top on a bookshelf, and he's just like, this whole process, he's going in between the desk, he's going under the desk, and he's knocking the chair around. I love that moment. But for me, it has to be the feeling I got when a movie affects you. And that's probably why I'm a horror film. Like, I love when a movie, like, I don't watch it and it's like, oh, it was all right. But I love it when it affects me. And all the angles, the change of color, it just, the unsettling, mainly the angles, the way it's shot, it's just I really enjoyed it. It made me, like, into the film. I was, like, leaning in, listening to every scene. It was, the Madman was fantastic. I think he needs a film by himself. Again, that character or a character like that, because we didn't even discuss it. He was a madman because he was experimented on.
Yeah.
In Dr. Mengele's castle, or whatever. The Dr. Moreau.
Murnau.
No, that's Murnau. Moreau is a different experimental doctor. But they shave the part in their back of their head, usually where men usually first start seeing male pattern baldness, and there's like part of their brain has been exposed, and they just put the kind of like a cap. They just put the skull back on with the skin, and this madman's just running around. I loved him, but the atmosphere, the angles, the tone of everything, I absolutely enjoyed about this film, and it made me feel something. I mean, I felt unsettled, and I felt interested. I wanted to find answers, just like him, just like Kafka did, and I was along for the ride, and I enjoyed that.
No, I am a big fan of this movie. I still really enjoy this film. It's one of those where I really like. I will be one of the first to buy this movie when it's available, because I want it. I want to see it. First of all, I want to see it in widescreen because it's full frame, and I can't imagine that this movie is anything less than just stunning to watch in on a widescreen format. Like I have to imagine his shot composition, and I mean the black and white photography, just the photography in general is great in this movie. It's just such a fantastic. It's such a fun, entertaining thriller, and it's one of those things where if you appreciate this type of film, if you appreciate film noir, if you appreciate if you appreciate movies that take chances, this is one that is well worth checking out, and I really cannot recommend it highly enough, especially if you're a Soderbergh fan and this is still blind spot for you with him. It's well worth checking out.
I will also second that and recommend it as well for anybody who can get their hands on it, be it through Amazon Prime. If you see it, rent it on there. You won't be disappointed unless you're like, oh, I can't stand movies in black and white. I have a friend who hasn't seen Clerks yet because they're like, oh, I don't watch black and white movies. Yeah, I'm like, oh, then you're missing out on so much. You're missing out on like 50 years of great stuff, man. But yeah, I absolutely would recommend this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to watch it again sometime down the road. Maybe not so much after this, because I'm going to be probably rewatching for two edit-in scenes into the podcast of good stuff. But just like Welcome to the Dollhouse, I'm done with that. I'm done with it. I'm ready to put it on the shelf and let it sit and collect dust for about a year or two before I give it another watch.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one since '97, I think. So yeah, that's one I definitely need to rewatch at some point.
It's definitely a fun time capsule.
Yeah.
There's my co-host. Hey, chill. Okay, this is the part of the show. This is my little gimmick at the end. If you had to pair it with another film for a one-night double feature, what film would you pair it with?
So I know what your choice is, and that was my first one too. But I actually thought of another one that is probably more obscure, but really fits in nicely with Kafka. And part of the reason is it's it's a film based on one of Kafka's most famous stories. And it is Orson Welles' The Trial. It was a movie made in 1960. Two was released in 1963. It was actually produced by the Stolkines, whom you might be familiar with as the producers of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. And it's a movie he made after his time in Hollywood was essentially over, and Wells was struggling to get productions up and running. But he did still continue to make some really interesting films. Chimes at Midnight, which is an adaptation of Shakespeare, is one of his most famous ones. That is part of the Criterion Collection. The Trial, I hope, is one that does get added to the Criterion Collection. It has Anthony Perkins as Joseph K. And going into something that I was talking about with Kafka, it's essentially Joseph K. is accused of a crime. He doesn't know, but when he tries to ask, well, what crime am I committed? Am I guilty of? Nobody will tell him. And so he's under what's known as open arrest. And so the movie is essentially his journey to try to figure out what crime he committed and to try to get answers. Anthony Perkins is Joseph K. in the film. Orson Welles has a role in it. John Moreau has a role in it. I watched it I first watched it in like 2002, 2003. It is available on iTunes now if you want to check it out. I highly recommend it. It's well worth watching. I got it as part of this double feature disc that was like bargain basement double feature disc that was at Walmart. I don't think they have it anymore, but it is on iTunes. But it is it's one of the best films Orson Welles ever did, actually, and it's just such a compelling movie. It just you can't stop watching it, and especially if we're talking about Kafka, it makes sense to pair this with probably the best adaptation of his work in dramatic form. So I would pair it with The Trial by Orson Welles.
You know what year that came out?
1963.
Oh, excellent. Oh, so this is post Psycho.
Yeah.
Was this Perkins' first film after Psycho? Do you know?
I don't know about that, but it definitely like
the film probably rode the wave of Psycho to help him get the job.
Probably,
okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm actually I think you sold me on that one. I want to try to find that. For me, my double feature option would be, we talked about it before, Dark City. I went the easy route, and like Brian said, he was going to take it too. But it's okay if we come up with the same double feature. But it's just my little game here at the end. But if I would pair it, it'd have to be Dark City for reasons we already discussed. You know, the same society, trying to find out who's running it and why. And if you got time for a third, I'd say toss in The Matrix. Why not? Yeah. Throw in the Matrix and just watch a progression of society and time, quote unquote society, because of Dark City. You know, when we discover what's going on with that city.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Marv once again for allowing me to share this as part of the Sonic Cinema podcast. I really have always been a fan of Kafka since I first watched it. And I got to thinking that it would be good first episode for 2022 because of the fact that I'm actually going to be discussing Soderbergh again for another podcast early in the year, and I will keep you abreast on when that is. For now, though, thank you very much for joining me at the Sonic Cinema podcast. Next up, we are going to be discussing the Oscars, my best films of the year, and of course, the Sundance Film Festival. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy.